Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon video. So today I'm going to be talking about a topic that's been on my mind for quite a while recently, and that is going to be the overall problems with the color yellow. So in case anyone missed the fact that I did a video covering the problems with black and why black is so weak, today I'm going to be covering the problems with yellow and why yellow is so strong. So yellow as a whole is too strong on a fundamental level, and they really need to be very careful on how they handle what yellow is doing, just because what yellow is doing as a whole is just overly too strong compared to what any of the other colors are playing around with. So going over yellow's history, yellow started as one of the base three colors along with blue and red. Yellow got a starter deck, and yellow was one of the premier colors in the first booster set. So in the start of the game, yellow was actually the weakest color, just because the core concepts that yellow was playing around with, while they were very strong on base, the Digimon card game was in its infancy, and nobody really understood how to properly utilize any of its tools. So the big tools that Yellow has been playing around with is DP reduction and recovery. So those are two of Yellow's core fundamental mechanics that they are playing around with, and it turns out after extensive amounts of play and over many sets, those two mechanics are just what makes Yellow so strong and what makes Yellow so powerful. So the big thing about the fundamental on how Yellow is interacting with the opponent's Digimon is in the form of DP reduction. So it's in the form of a debuff, and once that Digimon has been debuffed enough to where its DP is 0, then it gets deleted. So what's making this mechanic so much stronger than any form of removal in the entire game is there's a couple of different reasons for this. The first big reason is DP reduction does stack. So the whole idea is you're supposed to stack multiple instances of these abilities, so that way you could end up deleting a wide variety of Digimon. So ordinarily these instances are supposed to be rather small, so that way you're supposed to just have lots of effort into stacking them up, but because the game has gotten so much more powerful and so much faster, the stacking is really easy, and the amount of DP reduction is rather large that they're playing around with. So that's one of the big core fundamental problems, is the fact that their type of removal is one that actually is additive. All of the other types of removal in the game are not additive. So what's making the additive property of Yellow's removal so powerful is the fact that if we just look at anything else that any other color has been playing around with, they have their own restrictions and requirements in terms of the Digimon that they're targeting. Whether it's cost-based, level-based, state-based, it doesn't necessarily matter. It's the fact that there is some other form of action required in order for that card to delete specific Digimon. Yellow doesn't have that restriction at all, and they just have to stack enough instances of DP reduction to end up deleting the opponent's Digimon. And then on top of that, another aspect that's what is making DP reduction so powerful is the fact that the act of reducing DP is not deleting the opponent's Digimon itself. It is the systems and mechanics of the game that is stating that the Digimon having 0 DP means it cannot exist on the field. And this is just really powerful because it bypasses a lot of natural defenses that we currently have in the game, just because a card might state that it might not be able to be deleted by card effects, but having its DP reduced to 0 is not being deleted by a card effect. It is the game itself that is deleting the Digimon, thus bypassing the natural defenses of the card. You could kind of say that's like the checks and balances to it, but if we look at every other form of removal, it is interacting with the Digimon by the card effect, not by the mechanic of the game itself. So the fact that Yellow is able to abuse game mechanics and systems already is just very powerful and very problematic, just because we've already seen that they have to start planning around how Yellow works as a whole, just because this ability is just really powerful natively because it's interacting directly with the mechanics of the game. And then there's a third aspect on what is making DP reduction so powerful, and that's the fact that you don't even have to reduce the opponent's Digimon's DP all the way to 0 in order to try to remove it off the field. So what you could do is, if you don't have a lot of DP reduction to enable it to be having its DP reduced to 0, you could use DP reduction to just make your Digimon naturally stronger than the opponent's Digimon, so that way you could beat up into their Digimon. So we saw this all the way back in BT01, people were using slash Angemon to delete Omnimons just because they'd have arrested Omnimon, and then slash would be able to beat over it because it had its DP reduced to where slash can actually swing over it. So yellow's level of removal is just very, very powerful because of all of the different ways that you could use it and how it's interacting with the systems and mechanic of the game itself. So on top of the fact that their removal is already looking to be very, very powerful on a fundamental level, yellow is also playing around with the fact that they are interacting with the security, which not a whole lot of other colors are interacting with the security in a meaningful way. So yellow is just the color that currently is interacting with the security in various different forms, whether it is increasing or decreasing your own security count, whether that is buffing or debuffing yours or the opponent's security, or just using the security as basically a second hand to be able to look and dig through your security to try to find cards to help with the overall consistency of what the color is trying to do. So those are all just very powerful aspects on what is making yellow and its interaction with security very powerful, but one of the more standout mechanics is going to be the recovery mechanic as a whole, just because recovery is looking to be very powerful again on a very fundamental level based on how the game has been played up to this point. So healing in TCGs isn't necessarily a brand new concept, but what's making it so stand out and so powerful in Digimon is just how the security mechanic functions as a whole and what you could do with the security mechanic that's making recovery just more powerful than any other form of healing in any other TCG. So the security system kind of seems to be designed to be basically like a pseudo comeback mechanic, where the idea is you're going to want to swing into the opponent's security. The opponent's security has the potential to delete the Digimon that you used to swing, or it has the potential to not delete the Digimon that you used to swing and allow you to swing into their security again when that Digimon is able to, or with various other Digimon. So what a lot of the abilities that they slapped on a lot of the cards for the security to make it that comeback mechanic is the ability to activate a very powerful card's main ability in security. So ordinarily, you're only going to be running a limited number of cards that are actually going to be triggering in the security because of how the design of the game wants you to play. It wants you to play more Digimon versus Tamers and options, so that way you could actually advance your board state and advance the game. But what Yellow has adopted as a sub-strategy is the way to just heal up their security, to try to keep their security as healthy as possible, and try to rely on these big bomb cards that are going to be triggering for free in the security to deal with any and all threats that the opponent could be presenting them with, on top of being able to play Digimon to slowly pressure the opponent into conceding the game. Whether it's through deck out because they stalled out long enough, or whether it's just them not being able to deal with the aggression that you're just slowly presenting on the board, just because all of their Digimon are getting deleted for them actively trying to win the game, is just what's making security very, very powerful, and the recovery mechanic paired up with what they've been doing with security just very powerful as a whole. And then another really powerful aspect to what's making security super strong is the fact that you don't have to be color locked in order to use cards from the security. So ordinarily, in order to, let's just say, use a red option, you need to have a red card on your field in order to use that red option. But if it's coming out of the security, it bypasses that restriction, and you're just able to use that red option. So Yellow has adopted the removal abilities of other colors in order to try to double down and enforce their security to be as strong as they possibly can, while they're still actively trying to recover it to try to put the top card of their deck into the security, so that way they're hoping that it's going to be more removal cards or something to deal with the opponent's field, on top of them just being able to naturally hard play a lot of their options that are also acting as some very good removal options, just to make what Yellow is doing as a whole from the security very, very powerful. And the fact that as of right now, Yellow is realistically the only color that's interacting with their security and the recovery mechanic as a whole is just adding to the overall power of what Yellow's been playing around with, just because it gives them more tools than any other color in the game, just because that's a zone or a section of the game that they can't really interact with. Most of the time, if they do interact with it, it's just removing security, but the fact that Yellow is the only color that actually can add security is just a part of what makes Yellow so strong, and adding to the diverse amount of tools that Yellow has to be working with. And speaking of other tools and other colors, yellow also has slowly been getting the tools and abilities of other colors as well. So we saw this in BT04, where we have the yellow War Greymon that is able to unsuspend himself, so that way he could swing again. So usually that's just a very blue ability to be doing, and the fact that now yellow has access to basically a blue ability is just looking to be very, very powerful because of all of the different types of synergies that this now can line up. And we see this pop up again in BT06, where BT06, they get a new Pulsemon that gives the ability of jamming. So again, that's another very stereotypical blue thing that they have, and now yellow has access to it as well, on top of yellow having access to high-level blockers, which is ordinarily a very black thing to do. And on top of that, yellow also has access to a little bit of self-mill, which is a very purple thing to be doing. So yellow keeps getting these tools that other colors generally have had access to, and the fact that yellow just keeps getting more and more tools while all of the other colors are basically staying within their lanes is part of why yellow is just being really, really strong and really, really powerful. And we see this even with BT07. They're adding more cards that are basically other abilities from other colors that yellow is now getting access to as well. So on top of the fact that yellow just has so many diverse tools that it has to be interacting with, both from other colors and its own, it also just has some really high levels of synergy that a lot of the other colors just don't really have the way yellow has it. So as an example, in BT03, we got a Angelwomon that has this nice when attacking ability where if you are at 3 or fewer cards in your security, then you get to put one yellow Digimon from your hand into the battle area for free. So this is just a really powerful ability, and in the set that she came out with, it seemed like she was supposed to interact with Mastimon because Mastimon at that time was the only card to actively reduce your own security to try to put yourself into that security threshold. Otherwise, you're just sitting there and waiting for the opponent to tack into your security, which eventually they're going to have to if they're going to want to win the game. So this ability is going to be already very easy to trigger just within the set, but in BT04, they got a card to help push that kind of synergy and strategy along in the form of War Greymon, where not only is he actively helping reduce your own security to make triggering this ability easier and faster, but on top of that, this card also gets multiple swings to get multiple triggers of this ability off, and that's just looking to be very, very powerful, on top of the fact that, again, you could still play the card like you could back in BT03, where you didn't really have this type of synergy and interaction, but you still had other cards to just help play your Digimon for free, and this just doubles up on being able to play your Digimon for free. So in BT05, we see that Lord Nightmon is just looking to be a very powerful Digimon just because of everything that card is doing, and one of those things that the card is doing is presenting lots of pressure by just allowing you to play your Digimon for free, and that's just really powerful. Granted, Lord Nightmon is partially problematic due to the interaction with Nightmon, where you're just spawning a free level 5, but again, that's just free Digimon value that no other color is really playing around with, and the few times that they do play around with it, it's so limited and restricted that it's barely even playable. So as just a couple of examples to bring up, we have Argamon level 5 in green, which as a side note did get limited to 1, more so because of his Digisorption ability rather than the when attacking to free play level 3s for free. But regardless, the fact that he still had that ability and he had to be limited to 1 really kind of hurt the color a lot. Again, more because Digisorption was broken rather than the free casting, but the free casting was still nice when it came off, but even when it came off, the Digimon came in suspended, so even then, it limited what you could do with that Digimon when it came in, where yellow didn't necessarily have that problem. And then you also have Metal Garurumon and just how purple likes to play Digimon. It likes to play Digimon from the trash, but half the time you won't be able to get their on-play effects, and purple still has some really decent on-play effects that they want to be trying to trigger. So again, it's just limiting what they can do, on top of the fact that the Digimon has to be in the trash, which could or could not be easier to set up than just trying to play Digimon from your hand. So again, there's just another restriction and limitation on how purple is interacting with being able to free cast Digimon. And then you also have in blue being able to play Digimon from your inheritable sources, which again is a lot more limited. Even though you do have a couple of different targets, you only have a certain number of uses that you could actually do this with, just because you only have a certain number of Digimon in your inheritable sources that this actually will be interacting with. So again, all of these examples just show how limited free casting for other colors is, but how unrestricted for how yellow has been currently playing around with it. And then going back to the theme of how yellow has been playing and its high levels of synergy, yellow has a lot of very powerful Digimon that they are able to free cast. So as I mentioned before with Lord Nightmon and Nightmon, that's just a very powerful interaction because being able to spawn a level 5 body for free that also is helping remove Digimon off the field is just inherently already really good, especially since you could use that level 5 to Digivolve right up into another level 6. But regardless, for the most part, level 3s are where you're going to be free casting more often than not. So the level 3s that they have just also have very high levels of quality to them just because of everything that they're doing. Even though stat-wise they're not necessarily the strongest, it's just the amount of varied abilities that they have and flexible utility type tools that they are just make them stand out cards more than any other colors. So if you're free casting cards, that means you could ignore their costs and requirements. So you could play something like Lucimon for free, where he just has a very nice on-play ability and he has some very powerful stats. On top of that, you also have something like Bushi Agumon, where you play it for free and it's just an extra swing out of nowhere that the opponent just might not be anticipating or be able to handle. Then on top of that, you have a slew of other very powerful on-play effects that you could trigger, all depending on what deck you're trying to build. So you have Tamer Digging, you have Recovery, you have Drawing, you have Removal, you have various debuffs, and then various other levels of high utility. So the card quality for yellow just is a lot higher in terms of the targets that you're actually going to want to be free playing, and that just makes yellow very, very powerful already, on top of which their low-level inheritables are also looking to be very, very powerful. So we see that in BT06, we get Tapermon, which just, again, helps us draw cards. We get Patamon, that helps us gain memory. We get Labramon, which again helps us draw cards. We get Salamon, that helps with our removal. So yellow just has a lot of varied tools and high levels of card quality on their low levels, which just makes them, again, stand out versus most of the other colors. And this problem is only exacerbated just because they can play a lot of their low levels that much more efficiently because of their synergy with being able to play them for free. But again, not all yellow decks are going to be playing them for free, but regardless, the fact that they still have some very powerful tools on these low levels just do give them that much of an edge over colors that aren't necessarily running those same level of tools. And then yellow just has a whole bunch of varied tools to help keep itself up with all of the other colors. So you have level 4s and level 5s that you could hard play or evo for rather cheap just to try to keep up with the pace and tempo with a lot of the other colors. You have some really good tamers that help with your deck's overall consistency. And you even have good draw and control tools attached to your level 2s or your Digitama slot, so that's also looking to be pretty good, on top of a slew of other very powerful abilities that you could be playing with, all depending on the deck that you're running. And on top of that, they also have a level 7 that they could be playing around with just because all of the other colors have a level 7, so yellow just has theirs as well. But as I stated before previously, the big thing that's what's making yellow super extra powerful is the fact that all of it just works. So, like, all of the new cards interact with the old cards, all of the old cards interact with the new cards, and the sub-themes and mechanics that they're playing around with are just inherently really powerful, and everything just meshes, blends, and smooths it together to just to present yellow with just being one of the more dominant colors in the game. Now, we did see in BT06 there was a huge decline in yellow's overall popularity as a whole, but yellow was still just a very prominent color in a lot of specific decks and builds. So one of those more specific deck and builds was security control, and yellow being able to recover cards is the core part of how that just works as a whole. So that way you could try to put all of your removal cards into your security. So it's still just, again, a very powerful and prominent color in those types of strategies, on top of it still being very powerful. Even though Lord Nightmon does kind of take a back seat, yellow is still just used in various other places to various levels of degree of success, and it's still just, again, a very powerful strategy just because of how everything is working on a fundamental fundamental level with all of the mechanics and interactions that it has with itself and other colors. But yellow's big problem isn't necessarily one particular card that's just overperforming at the time. It is just the sum of its parts because of all of the high levels of synergy and interaction that everything has, on top of paired up with the native mechanics that it's playing around with, are just fundamentally stronger than anything else in the game from a conceptual level. So yellow is just overperforming just because it is just doing lots of various different things, because it could do almost everything every other color can do, on top of doing its own thing with such high levels of synergy that, again, everything just meshes and smooths really nicely, no matter what you end up using. So there isn't necessarily any one particular way to try to fix yellow to make it as balanced as some of the other colors. I would just say going forward what they should do is just stop giving it the tools that other colors have, keep itself within its lane, and just expand the mechanics that it's currently working with instead of always constantly bombarding it with new mechanics for it to be playing with because of how much high levels of synergy the color has already. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.